good morning to you.
Good morning.
What we've seen over the last few days are growing pains, Nicola Sturgeon says. Do you agree?
No, I don't agree with that. I do agree with her, however, that I think the party can bounce back from this at the end of the contest. However, I started this contest many weeks ago, as you'll no doubt remember, setting out a platform for increased democracy in the party. I said that the party had lost its way on a number of issues. And I do feel that by the high-profile resignations that we've had from the party over the weekend, that I have been vindicated in setting out that actually what we need is more democracy and a fresh vision and under new leadership.
Do you have faith in the process?
Well, I've certainly had concerns over the process. Yesterday, I made what I felt were very reasonable suggestions in order to satisfy those concerns, but they've been rejected by the party. I obviously had various conversations with the National Secretary and also the new interim CEO, which is Mike Russell. I think there has been a material change in circumstances. I think many people might have thought that initially, perhaps a week ago, that a continuity candidate, for instance, was the right choice. I think having seen how events have unfolded over the last week now, though, that they might be suffering from voter regret. However, if members want to change their vote or if they've got issues with the process, then I think the membership need to make their voices heard to headquarters.
Well, HQ says that would be massively disruptive and confusing for members.
Well, they did say that, but I don't think the membership would be at all confused by that. It seems to me to be quite a simple process, and there is precedent for it. We've done it before during a selection contest. So, but
slightly different from voting for the leader, isn't it?
Well, it is, but I think in some, if you think of it this way, is it not even more important when we're voting for something at this level, where the person is going to become the leader of the party and also the First Minister? Do you not think that it would be right that there's enhanced transparency, which is what I've called for all along, and that also that it would be very unsatisfactory if we do get to the end of this process and people have outstanding questions about what has gone on during the last few weeks?
And if those questions are still unanswered at the end of this process, do you accept the result?
Of course, I accept the result. I've said that all along. I'm putting the interests of the party first now by saying that I will stick with this timetable.
So no legal challenge?
No, I never said that I was going to do a legal challenge. I did say I've taken legal advice, which I think is entirely appropriate in a professional campaign.
What did they tell you?
Just to look at all our options. But I've got
so no... So they tell you were wasting your time taking any kind of legal action?
No intention of taking legal action. I don't think that's appropriate. But if members do think that they've got an issue with this process in any way, shape or form, then I think that they should make their voices heard to headquarters.
But ultimately, if people have, as you suggest, buyer's regret because they voted for a continuity candidate, isn't that about your inability to persuade them to vote for you in the first couple of weeks of this campaign?
Well, I think that, certainly the continuity candidate was setting out in the initial stages of this contest, that there was nothing wrong in the party.
But that's continuity on Nicola Sturgeon's agenda, it wasn't all continuity in terms of how the party machine operates.
No, it was. It absolutely was. I was the only candidate to set out an SNP action plan. I was the only candidate to say that there might be issues. And indeed, when I set out that plan right at the beginning, I think it was probably one of the first lines in the first speech I gave at the first hustings, where I said that there were issues in the party and that we'd lost our way a little bit. I was attacked by other candidates. I was attacked online. I was told that this was ridiculous. There was no basis for this. But I think we can see that the events over the weekend with several high-profile people having to resign over issues in the party, that I have been vindicated.
You told me last week that you believe the large fall in membership numbers in recent months is directly related to the passing of the Gender Recognition Reform Bill just before Christmas. If that is the case, then given your stance on that, that means that potentially you've lost a lot of voters. Well,
we have. 30,000.
But you personally,
Well, we don't know for sure. I think that I'll just be clear about that. I'm basing this on, my mailbox, if you like. So I had a lot of members write to me.
Who were sympathetic towards your position, I presume.
No, I had a lot. Just let me finish what I'm saying. I had a lot of members write to me from around about October, which is obviously the time that I resigned last year, and it continued on up until the present time, saying to me that they had left the party over the gender recognition and other issues. But at that time, they were mainly talking about that. So with that anecdotal evidence, I was quite sure going into this contest that the membership figures were not as they were being presented. And that's why I asked for the membership figures to be clarified. Obviously began asking for them right at the beginning because I thought it was entirely appropriate to know the number of people that would be voting in a contest, and indeed that's information that we would normally have access to. On publication of that data, you can see that we've lost 31,000 members since August last year, which obviously takes into account the time period where the Gender Recognition Reform Bill was going through Parliament. Now, I can't say for sure that those two things are connected, but it seems very likely that they are.
Let me ask you about a couple of other issues. This morning we're discussing minimum unit pricing. There's been a study that suggests that it may have saved 150 lives last year. Those who advocate minimum unit pricing say that if the price rises, more lives could be saved. Do you back a rise in that price?
Well, I think certainly when Scotland was looking at bringing in this legislation, again, we were told, you can't do that. This is, terrible. And certainly Scotland was leading the way when we looked at doing this. I know other countries were looking very carefully to see what Scotland was doing. So I think having heard your report there, and it's saying that it potentially saved 150 lives and many of them from the most deprived communities in Scotland, I think we can see the policy is working. Now, I wouldn't want to say initially, obviously without looking into the detail of this, and I'm not a minister who's at any time been in charge of this policy, that it is something that we should review. And it's possible that perhaps if the price was increased, it would save more lives. But that's something that we would need to look into.
We're also talking about health inequalities in a study that suggests that there's still a real gulf in terms of life expectancy in this country compared to other parts of the UK. When it comes to UK parliamentary constituencies, 17 of the 20 seats at the bottom of the league table are in Scotland. Glasgow's 7 constituencies are the worst in the UK. As First Minister, how do you fix that?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. It is not acceptable. And I think that I see that as, obviously as a devolved government, we could be doing more to address these issues. But I wonder if now we're at the point where Scotland's ambition in order to resolve some of these issues, we're finding that within the straitjacket of the UK, there is a limit to what we can do. So we know that...
So that's your message to people in Scotland when it comes to health inequality, when health is completely devolved, that actually there's nothing you can do because of Westminster.
I'm saying to you that the SNP government has spent millions and millions of pounds mitigating the worst of Tory austerity and policies that are clearly...
Mitigating or just making different choices? Isn't that what devolution's about? Isn't that what being in government's about?
I think we've outgrown devolution now, and I think my ambition for Scotland in solving all of these issues and making Scotland a better, a fairer and a greener country for all of us to live in means that we must proceed towards independence, because with the full powers and control of our budget, we will be in a better place to try and solve some of these issues.
Is it your ambition to make devolution work if you're elected?
Well, I've set out very clearly that I will do everything I can to refocus government onto the priorities of the people of Scotland, and health was one of the ones that I named as being, because I know that
is it your top priority, or is that independence?
So my top priority under devolution is running the government so that it is working well for the people of Scotland, tasked very specifically on delivering services. So that's under devolution. However, I've been very clear. I'm running to lead the Scottish National Party, and I believe Scotland will be better off and it will be a better country for all of us to live in if we're independent.
So how do you square those two circles? As leader of the SNP, your top priority is independence. As First Minister, your top priority is other issues. How do you square that?
Well, what
is your top priority?
Well, it's a big role because you have to be First Minister and you're leader of the party as well. So what I've set out is that I'll be focusing 100% on running the government, running it wisely and competently.
So not focusing 100% on independence then?
We'll be setting up the Independence Convention, which is the wider movement, and they will take forward the case for independence.
So you're not leading from the front in independence?
Parliament. And also that we'll be setting up the Independence Commission, which will be working on building the infrastructure and reporting that progress to the people of Scotland so that they can feel confident when they're ready to choose Scotland to become an independent country.
So it's interesting you talk about outgrowing devolution, but then there'll be some who will point to the fact that you are willing to let the UK government continue with its position on the Gender Reform Act and not challenge them.
Well, the reason that I'm not going to challenge that is because we'll lose. So any candidate that's suggesting to you they will fight this all the way is basically asking the taxpayer for a blank cheque.
How do you know you'll lose?
I don't think that's appropriate because I've seen legal analysis from a number of top lawyers in Scotland, and I am very confident that we would lose that court case. And the other thing to point out is that the Scottish public do not support this. It was a very flawed piece of legislation. And so I don't think it's appropriate to be spending taxpayers' money to fight something that taxpayers themselves and the voters and the public in Scotland do not support.
Would the same be true if the UK government vetoed the deposit return scheme?
Well, I said over the last few weeks that if I'm going to challenge the UK government as First Minister, and I'm absolutely sure that a circumstance would arise where I would do that, I would only want to do that in an area where the Scottish public were behind me.
And they're not behind you on the deposit return scheme, you believe?
Well, I don't think it's going to get to that point in terms of the deposit return scheme.
What does that mean? It won't happen?
No, I don't think it will, but we'll wait and see.
Ash Regan, thank you very much indeed for joining us on the programme this morning.